Hi, it's Thursday, the 8th of August, and we're here to look at the astrology for today or this week. And I'm going to share the chart so we can see what we're looking at. Right, okay then, brilliant. So the moon has gone to 01 of Libra, which means just a few hours ago, maybe 4 hours ago, it was in the same part of the sky as the asteroid Juno. Juno is right at the end of Virgo there, 29 degrees of Virgo. And that means that Juno is opposite Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces. So I think what we'll do, because the moon has just passed over Juno, I think we will have a look at these two together. Not just in the opposition, but what happens when the symbol for relating on every single level gets into bed with or becomes enmeshed with Neptune. What does that mean? I think that might be a good one to look at. Okay, so yes, well, okay, first of all, let's start with the asteroids. I'm going to think about where should we start, right? I'll stop sharing this now. Let's start with the asteroids. So the asteroids are, as probably the name implies, not really planets in a regular way, although there is a dwarf planet in there now. It's a whole ring of rocky material around the Earth in between Mars and Jupiter. It was probably a planet billions of years ago, but when the solar system was being formed, there was a massive, a catastrophic collision, and what was probably forming into a planet was shattered and became all the pieces of rock that are now in the asteroid belt. And there are millions. There are some really big ones, the size of planets, and then there's some really tiny ones. The four biggest were discovered in the they were discovered in 1801 actually, and they were given the names of female deities, and which was great because it gave us something to work with. I think the whole asteroid belt itself can be described as being about a process. When we leave the planet Mars and we're heading out into space, the asteroid belt comes before Jupiter, as I said. To get to Jupiter, we have to transverse or go through the asteroid belt. And I think this actually talks about the human journey. The planets up to Mars, and including Mars, are very personal planets. They give us our functioning, basically, how we notice or communicate, our emotions, our anger, the energy with which we get up in the morning, the center spirit. When we get through to Jupiter, we are actually encountering bigger and wider concepts. And the asteroid belt is a gatekeeper, really, through to the ability to philosophize and to consider something bigger. So I say it's about process, and each of the asteroid goddesses describes a process. And in actual fact, you could spend your whole life studying the asteroid belt, because some of those asteroids are incredibly accurate with their predicting power. Their symbolizing is easy to read. And there are so many of them, and some of them have fascinating jobs to do in terms of describing some element of our existence. So if ever you get the opportunity, then there is a book called The Asteroid Goddesses by Demetra George, actually, which you can still buy. Anyway, so that was a small introduction to the asteroids. So they're about a process. They're subtle. This is feminine energy, complex. They tend to be lost in the general astrology world. However, when you introduce them into your charts, when you start to be able to read charts, you get more complexity and more information than you do if you just use the basic planets. So Juno describes relating and relationship. Now, that's not just romantic relationship or sexual relationship. It's the relationship between one person and another person in whatever role. So it can be somebody at work, it can be careers, it can be family relationships sometimes. It can be a relationship where you are part of a bigger movement. Let's say you've been in the Navy. And then forever you are in the fraternity of that experience. It makes you part of a clan. So all these things are relating relationships. Now, when we actually get into the relating part of it, Juno describes not just the bliss of meeting someone or catching their eyes across a crowded room or looking at some bloke in the disco and going, oh, he's gorgeous, as we used to do in the 1970s. Oh, Drippy asked me to dance. And then you look hopeful. Anyway, so it's Juno is accompanying you when we're into that kind of thing. But Juno is also there through all the different ups and downs of relating. So when we start dating, when we go serious, when we get engaged, when we get married. And she takes us right the way through into the stormy side too, and the big differences, and into big rages, rows, breakups, divorces. So you'll find that you have a big Juno thing going on in your chart on the day you open your decree night sign or absolute. She's very much part of this whole thing. And then she'll be there again when you meet somebody new, etc. Okay, so yeah, I think that about covers it for Juno. Now, Neptune, here's a mysterious energy. In astrology, there are some concepts that are surprisingly difficult to get, and I think Venus is one of them, actually. Venus has been oversimplified considering the huge power that planet represents. But anyway, going back to Neptune, well, the huge power that Neptune represents, let's do that one as well. Neptune essentially represents something that isn't Earth-like, that is very numinous, very ethereal, very mysterious. It's like trying to grasp a fog, a sea fog. You know, the fog comes in and you're trying to grasp it. Or trying to grasp anything, really. Your hands just go around nothing. There's a dissolving type feature to Neptune. And Neptune can dissolve and dissolute, as in dissolution, almost anything really that it touches. It has this way of just absorbing something like blotting paper, so that the something has mysteriously disappeared. But what we can feel with Neptune is this huge pull, like we're being sucked in to this amazing, magical, spiritual. With Neptune, we feel that there is a place or there is a divinity which supports us, loves us, embraces us, feeds us, nurtures us. And in the knowledge of that, then Neptune is also the part of us that pines and yearns and longs to get back to a perfection where we were once joined with Neptune's mighty powers. So we're saying before the human race, before being born, before the Big Bang, before the fall of man. And it's a blissed out Garden of Eden effect. And it's like floating around in the amniotic fluids in the womb, where everything's taken care of. But it's wanting to stay in that wonderful warm place and not be ejected through the birth canal. And when we are, then we've lost something, and we spend our whole lives with our Neptune part of us wanting to get back there. A bit like E.T., go home. We just want to go home with Neptune. We feel very lost, very alone sometimes, very distant, and completely unable to connect with anything on the earthly realm. It's all about the spiritual. Okay, so if we put Juno, the ability to relate, in with Neptune, then Neptune's mighty, toxic, religious, spiritual energy gets confused with Juno. And so the relationship or relating matter can be confused with something that is dissolving. But more than that, probably making us see through rose-tinted glasses. We always say rose-tinted. These aren't rose-tinted, but we put glasses on, they're rose-tinted, and we see everything pink and beautiful and perfect. It's when Neptune's involved, we don't see the imperfections. We see perfection, and we long for a union. We long for a blissed out oblivion with Neptune's mighty, intoxicating power. Neptune represents all of the illegal drugs, the Class A drugs, etc. Well, any drug, whether it's illegal or not, because it intoxicates. It gives us a euphoria. It lifts us out of normal, banal, human stumbling, fumbling, and gives us a feeling of being lifted into some kind of paradise where we have an ecstatic joy and a connection where we are completely absorbed by this beautiful energy. Takes away free will, and it takes away will of any kind, really. Spirit is particularly struck by it. It's sort of, it's the water to the fire. It's the water that I suppose puts out the fire. Now, there is always a struggle going on between spirit, which is fire, and water, because when you think about it, fire, the sun, heats the water evaporates. They have a relationship with each other. And it's essential, because without fire's heating of the water, then we wouldn't get vegetation, we wouldn't get life springing from the ground. If it's a frozen ground, then nothing's going to come forth, as it were. So in a chart, in a birth chart in astrology, likewise, there is a relationship between fire and water, which is to do with the heat energizing the water and taking it into its different states. So water can be ice, frozen. Water can be liquid, slopping around. Water can be steam. And when you think about it, it's heat that actually takes it through those stages. So fire has an effect. But anyway, just sort of trying to stick to the water. So Neptune's mighty waters, which are mysterious, and even with the planet itself, go to science and go to astronomy. And Neptune is known to have something called heavy water, which is completely not understood at all. They've given it the title, they've dubbed it, given it a name, heavy water, but they really don't know what it is or what it's about. you can't land on Neptune. You can't send a spaceship and grab a sample and bring it back to Earth. It's all gas. You can put your hands through it. That's a gas giant. Anyway, so if we think about the effect that Neptune has on Juno, well, it can be two things, because it can be so uplifting and so kind of, oh, I'm in love, oh, he's gorgeous and I just love him, so you can get this ecstatic euphoria, but it's not always realistic. And actually, with Neptune there, rarely is it realistic, and the feeling will go along with the Neptune transit, and it's yeah, so you're not sort of grounded. It's not practical. So there is if the Neptune euphoria can be understood for what it is, and it's accepted that that isn't going to last, but the relationship is good enough without it, then it's a lovely cherry to the cake. It's the icing on the top, if you see what I mean. But if that's all the relationship is, this Neptune effect, it's not going to last very long, because it's not based on reality, or the reality of this dimension, let's say. Who knows what reality is in reality? Anyway, so what does all this mean? Well, do you know, funnily enough, I was at a wedding yesterday. I was helping out, and it was a lovely day, and it was all very friendly, and everybody really enjoyed it. It was a smallish wedding, but nevertheless, there wasn't so much stiff formalness that you always get at weddings, and everybody was just sort of chilled out, and there was a bar in the evening, and there was a band playing, and everybody's having a good time and stuff. And this guy was kind, really, to the couple getting married, I think, and they both looked very happy. So it was nice. Having a bit of Neptune at your wedding, I think, is a lovely thing. But Neptune opposite Juno can also mean that something is being washed away, that something is being rubbed out, like a rubber rubbing out pencil marks. Something is being eroded. It's a bit like, you've built your love, your relationship in sandcastles on a beach, right? But then a high tide comes and the water comes and just washes all your sandcastles away. That can be the effect of Neptune too. So Neptune can be taking something away, or Neptune can be injecting it with a bliss and an ecstatic feeling, but that won't last. But it's great to have it for the time being. Put all that into the opposite zodiac signs of Virgo and Pisces. And in actual fact, we've got something quite natural going on there, because Neptune's in its own sign of Pisces. Juno, probably not too uncomfortable, actually, in Virgo. Probably she quite likes having all that organized stuff and getting things in the right places, and the administration, and doing the female thing of working on stuff. So I don't think the zodiac signs probably inhibited the actions of the planets too much, if that's anything to go by. Right. I hope that was useful. I suppose what I intended with that was just really to give you more information about two planets, more than anything else, and their actions, so that you've got more information being filed up here in your astrology head. So you've got more stuff going in filing cabinets. So when you see these things, then you'll think, oh, yes, I know all about that one, and I know about this one, and yeah, and maybe even, you were at a wedding like I was yesterday, which just sort of seemed synchronous, or maybe you met somebody for the first time yesterday. You're in a coffee shop and there was somebody sat just there and kept looking at each other, and you haven't been able to forget about it. Or maybe you're on the bus and every morning you see him on the bus, and yesterday or today, he sits next to you and has a chat, and then off he goes, and you're like, oh God, oh my goodness, and then you're dreaming all kinds of things. You could have that sort of effect. Or you could have been dating someone and hoping that, you know, something starts to pick up and it starts to get more of an item. And then Neptune's cloudy, foggy side or watery side rushes up the beach and gets rid of and washes away all your sandcastles. I hope that's not how it was. Okay, right. I shall see you tomorrow, and I look forward to that. And I'm just going to see if I can find this stop thing. Yes, there it is. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very much for listening. It's been great. Okay, bye.